Hi my friend, in this video we're going to be making Ravey House drums inspired by Disclosure's song, The Observer Effect. We're going to find out if we can do this in under 30 minutes by using the 80-20 rule of house music production. And what you're listening to right now is a song that we'll be working on. And what you're looking at right now is the Ableton project file that we'll be working on. In particular, we're going to focus on this drum group right here, and we're going to go in order of the layers that I actually built everything out, so that you can follow along when you're building out drums for a song that sounds something like this. All in all, these drums only took me about 30, maybe 40 minutes to recreate, and if we pull out and have a look at this track, you can see it's been fully mixed, mastered, arranged, and ready to go, so it can be used in DJ sets or sent out to labels. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because we'll be doing a full recap of the 80-20 rule, so you can take everything that you're learning here and apply it into your own music as quickly as possible. And if finishing songs faster is something you'd like help with, I've made you a free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that I use to completely finish one new song like this every single week. Just visit the link that's on screen now or in the description to grab your copy of the Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit for free. And if you want to take things to the next level, you can find a link to this video's project files in the description as well. With that said, let's jump into this. All right. So first things first, let's just have a listen to the drums by themselves. Cool, so sounding pretty sick. So let's go over how I built this out layer by layer, so you can kind of follow along here. So always the first thing that I'll get done is the kick drum, kind of the most fundamental part of the drums, and especially in dance music, and it really drives the song forward. So getting that down correctly nice first really sets a good foundation. So that's usually how I start things off. So let's have a listen to that kick by itself. Boom. So it sounds pretty sick. Should mention one of the biggest things here is to make sure that you have the reference track that you want to be working against, because what we're going to be doing is flicking back and forth between what we have and the song that we want to emulate, so that we can create something that sounds really good. So the idea here is this is the reference, and this is ours. So we're going to be flicking back and forth. And if you need help setting up the reference track like this, dropping it in here, setting it up so you can flick back and forth between what you have and the reference, check out the playlist link in the description. There's a whole series of videos on how to kind of create songs in the way that I do, with a lot more detail in these ways. So if we have a look at the kick, it's like a nice big boomy kick. And what I have going on here, if we have a look at the pattern first, it's just a classic 4 on the floor here. And then at the end, there's this little extra little fill. So if we look at it as well as listen, the do at the end there. And so what you can see here is I'm layering 2 different kicks. So if we have a look, one of the kicks is actually, I sampled it from the track here. So I just stole a piece of it, threw it in here to this little rack that I have. And then I used the similar sound feature to find something that sounds similar. And so basically, once you extract a kick in Ableton, you can show it in the Finder, and then Ableton will find sounds that are similar to that. And the idea is to build up a little library of similar sounds so you can flick back and forth and figure out which one is the best. Again, that playlist link has a full rundown on how to do that. It's a little bit more in depth, so definitely check that out. But basically, the idea is you can extract the kick from a song and then use the similar sound feature to find sounds in your library that are very close to that. And then you can also layer them as well. Show you how to do that in that video. And we're just running it through a little bit of drum bus, adding a little saturation, and the main thing is adding in this boom. So if we listen to it without this drum bus, and then with, it adds like a bit more low-end fullness and makes it sound a little bit more professional in my opinion. And then other than that, I have this EQ8, and if you can see here the red dot, we're just using this to automate just removing the lows in it as like a transition trick. Once the kick is down correctly, the main thing is, so first getting the right pattern, then selecting the right sound, and then after that, really the main thing is getting the right volumes. So basically the idea is to be playing the song, flicking between the reference and what you have here, and then adjusting the volume so that it's similar. So if you have the right pattern, if you have the right sound, and you have the right volume, you're pretty much, that's going to be like the 80-20 rule right there. So then the next idea is to simply start building out the drums in terms of kind of what you're hearing next. So when I was listening to the reference, the next most powerful contributing factor that I heard was the clap. So let's have a listen to the clap that I added in here. and the reference. So if we have a look at the pattern, always pattern first, it's just the classic 4 on the floor pattern, and the template that I use has it set up so that these notes are already in place. The snares, positions of the snares like this, the claps like this, also some of the hi-hats, and even the kicks are always in the same place. So I've set up my template so these notes are already here. Again, there's another video in that playlist if you want to head over to the description where it shows you the template that I have and these little how to set it up like this so that you're ready to go and you're not punching in notes that you're going to always be punching in. So as you can see here, it is again the classic snare sound. So all I had to do was grab these and then move between my clap sounds in my little library that I've prepared here until I found something that sounded similar. So then if we have a look, I ended up just finding this sample here. And again, in that video where I showed the template, the idea is to build out a little tiny library of clap sounds that you like. That way you're not looking through 100 each time. You're just looking through, in this case, it was just 8, which is really nice. In terms of any processing, I'm just running it through the standard little channel strip that I have here. So it's very small moves that are made. So removing a bunch of the lows, making room so that's just like the bass and the kick takes care of that. We're using this transient designer here. And this is a free plugin. It just tightens up I use mostly to tighten up the sound. So you can see the sustain, I'm bringing it down to make the clap sound tighter. We're using a little bit of Ableton saturation. Again, just the idea here is to map main knobs or main controls of VSTs or plugins to these little macro knobs. That way you're just using your ear to quickly mix and move on. Again, if you want a rundown of this, that template video shows you this channel strip in a little bit more detail and how everything works specifically. But main thing here, after listening through that clap, again, you get the notes down correctly, you choose the right sound, and then it's all about just getting the volume correct. If we listen to ours, I think ours sounds too loud, so I would bring this down maybe a decibel or two to try to match it. But as you're building out the track, I always recommend like starting using the reference to like get it as close as possible, but then along the way, take creative liberty. So in this instance, I wanted the clap to sound louder, so I made it a little bit louder. There's definitely no harm in that. So then listening to the reference, if we have the kick and we have the clap, the next thing is definitely those closed hi-hats. So let's have a listen to what I added in here and I'll look at it as well. So with this one, the main thing here is it was a pretty cool, unique, shuffly kind of sound. I do have this set up so that like this offbeat bit here, usually the closed hats and the open hats, they're always on this offbeat like this. And so I have this template set up to automatically be like that. So when I jump in here, it's just a matter of adjusting it and kind of adding in the extra little shuffly notes. So what I was kind of hearing was like a little bit of a tambourine sound and this hi-hat sound here. I think what I did do is similar to the kick drum. I found like a little slice of just the hat, as you can see here, and used a similar sound function that I mentioned in that kick stealing video that is in the playlist to find some hi-hat sounds that are similar. The ones, if you just to show you what it kind of looks like from this point down here, like these ones are the hats that I always have selected. And then I use a similar sound function to find these additional ones here. So there's just more to work with. And the idea is you can select them like this. And as you can move them up and down to decide if that's the right sound. If you're just using one, you can also use the selector to automatically move the notes as well. The idea is just this cool little shuffly thing. I'd really just flick back and forth between the reference here and what I had here to try to find the right kind of rhythm there. And then there's this cool little open hi-hat at the end of it. So finding the right notes, finding the right sounds, and then once again, just dialing in the volume. There's a little bit of this mix as you go stuff going on here. So the idea is by having a channel strip set up like this, like I mentioned, you can quickly make these mixing moves and move on quickly so it's sounding as professional as possible as you're building out each element. So removing some of those, removing some of the attack so that it's not hitting as hard, and then tightening up the sustain, leaving the sustain alone, adding a little saturation to make it sound a little fuller and a little grittier. The main thing is the volumes is going to be the main thing there. Next thing I added in it's more part of the arrangement. So at a certain point here, this open hi-hat comes in. So let's take a listen to the reference. Kind of like shakery open hi-hat sound. So let's have a listen to what I created and have a look at the pattern as well. So main thing is, again, this is kind of that open hi-hat pattern. So it's like on the offbeat here. And so that was already set up, and that way I could just grab it, press Option, and then duplicate it if I needed to layer it. And we have 3, so that's a look at the pattern. In terms of the sounds, what we have is an open hat sound that I like, just tightened up a ton so that it's not ringing out much. And then I use this extraction thing, so I froze a bit of the open hi-hat, maybe this one here that plays at the end, and then just threw it into this little rack where I can shape it a little bit. And again, this is all in the project files if you want to grab it, and you could reuse this yourself. So I actually layered in a sample from the actual tune, and then use the similar sound function to layer in something else. So these are the individual sounds here. You can hear there's like almost a little bit of the bass guitar coming in there, which is not great, but it works in context. So then once you have we have the pattern, now we have the sound, and then a little bit of mix as you go. So we're just removing some of the lows. That's really it. And the main thing is the volumes. That's the main thing there. So just listening back and forth, reference, and what we have here. Cool. Then let's move on to the next element, which I added in these additional snares here. So let's have a listen to the reference. Oops, sorry. Let's have a listen to the reference. So right here, you're just listening for this almost like the snare fill right here. And then let's have a listen to what we have. There, so let's have a listen to it fully. That's all the snares adding right there. It's just a little cool little fill that's added to increase the energy over time. You can see the drums here. It's very much new layers are being added throughout the track. Very cool house kind of thing to do, slowly increasing the energy. So basically just figured out what the pattern was. It was just like where it was, just flicking back and forth. Then used this snare rack that I have. So it's a bunch of snare sounds that I like. It's a very minor sound, so I didn't take too long to kind of get it perfect. And then a little bit of mix as you go. So we're just removing some of the lows, tightening up the sustain a little bit so it's not ringing out as much. And then just nailing the level. So really the main thing. Then the next thing gets added in is a series of drum breaks. And so this is something I like to do as well in these tunes, is start off with the core sounds. So get your kick down in like MIDI like this, get your claps, hats, open hats, snares, and then that's kind of your core sounds, really driving the drum sound. Then you can start layering in drum breaks and different like percussive breaks and stuff like that in a subtle way to kind of add some extra grit and character to the song. So let's have a look at this first break that we added. And let's have a listen to it on its own. Really cool sounding break. So I think I just typed in house breaks into Ableton, dropped it in here with the warp marker set to beats and on transients. If you switch it from what it's normally at to the arrow pointing to the right, you can tighten this up like this, and it's going to reduce the transients and make the sound a lot tighter. So if we listen to it like this and then full, you hear all that drums. Let's remove it. So you remove like that sustained part of the drum break, and it makes it a lot tighter and helps it blend in with your core sounds a lot more. So that's a big tip there. Main thing is finding a cool sound, and then we're just removing some of the lows, and then using this one knob sidechain that I haven't shown yet, but it's just this Ableton shaper device going to quarter notes, which is what the kick is usually hitting, and then just ducking the volume. This way you can do a one knob sidechain instead of having to throw a compressor and dial in the compressor and then route it to the kick and all that stupid stuff. Or not stupid, I find it slows me down and I don't like doing it. And then other than that, there's just a small little ride loop here to get that in, which is just a cool loop that I have from something, maybe a remix competition or something. And it's just dialed in terms of the volume. We have a little bit of sidechain using this width plugin that I like a lot. Also free, Polyverse Wider, completely free. I've just mapped that like wide width knob to the to an Ableton rack here, so that I don't have to open up the plugin all the time and do anything like that. So it's just pushing it to the left and right, making it more stereo, leaving space in the middle for everything else. And then the last thing that's being added here is this drum loop right here. So let's have a listen. Play it by itself. And then in context. And so we're doing that tighten up little trick here. Let's see if we're doing anything crazy here. We are removing some of the lows. There's one point in the song where I added this little flanger bit to kind of make it as more like a little effect transition. It's not on the whole time. Little side chains with pumping and making room for the kick, and a little bit of width to like push left and right. And that is a pretty good look here at the drums for this one. Hi, my friend, Matt from Best Friends Club here. And if you've been paying attention, then you probably figured out what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to building out your drums. The goal here is to get 80% of the results with only 20% of the time, energy, or effort. And because the first key to the 80-20 rule for drums is to use a reference track, we're making sure that we're effortlessly hitting 80% of a very professional sounding track. In particular, we focus on nailing the pattern, sound selection, and the volume compared to the reference track so that we keep things fast and focused as we're building out our drums. The second key of the 80-20 rule here is to mix as you go in an extremely streamlined way by only focusing on the volume as well as a simple repeatable channel strip for each track that we're adding to our drums. The third and final key is to repurpose your old project files and to build up a suite of powerful templates, Ableton racks, and one-knob effects that you've personalized and curated over time. If you'd like to get a head start by downloading all the racks, templates, and all the files that you've seen me use in the Ableton project file for this video, or if you'd just like to take a closer look at any of the techniques or tracks you saw me work on in this video at your own pace, you can find a link to this video's project files on screen now and at the second link that's in the YouTube description. I'm recreating a different song from the Beatport top charts every single week and making the project files available to anyone who wants them. You'll also get access to a private Discord where you can ask me and the community questions, as well as share tracks for feedback. If you or your music are not quite ready for a shot in the arm like that, I've also made you a completely free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that have helped me figure out how to completely finish one new song each and every single week. And you can grab that free Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit by visiting the first link that's in the YouTube description here. However, if you just feel like staying on YouTube for now, that's totally fine. Save that link for later and check out this playlist of videos where I remake drums from other songs from the Beatport top charts. Or if you want to take what you've learned in this video to the next level, definitely check out this video right here.